Hi, everyone. Welcome to Amazing Women in E-Commerce, our US November edition. We're really excited to have you today. We have incredible speakers that I can't wait to introduce. But first, my name is Ariel Bubb. I am the Marketing Events Manager with Yapo. And before we jump into the program, I just want to share a few housekeeping notes with all of you. If you would like to share any content from this event on social, and we really encourage you to do so, please tag us at Yapo and also follow us on Instagram at Women in Ecom for updates on this initiative and our community. Speaking of our community, we couldn't do this without our incredible partners, Klarna, Salesforce, and Recharge, who not only support this initiative and the Amazing Women in E-Commerce, but also have generously donated to Girls Inc., the U.S. Fund for Women and Girls, in honor of today's speakers. So thank you again to our incredible event partners, Klarna, Salesforce, and Recharge. So just to give some background on the Amazing Women in E-Commerce project, this was an initiative we launched in 2018, seeking nominations to recognize visionary women who were shaping the e-commerce space. We had such an incredible response from the industry, and that really inspired us to expand our efforts, creating a lot of opportunities to share these stories and to build this community. So every year we host events, we share profiles and articles on amazing women and their work. Each year, from thousands of nominations, we select a group of women to honor as our amazing women in e-commerce. And now it makes sense for me just to show you who we're talking about and who we've honored in the past. This is half of the total group of women we've honored over the past 3 years, people from different backgrounds, brands, roles within e-commerce. And now we need to find our 2021 class of honorees, and that's where you come in. I'm super excited to announce nominations have officially been open since late October. With over 1,200 nominations and counting, we've raised $6,000 already for Girls Inc. We would love to hear from you. We would love to see you nominate a teammate, partner, friend, colleague, manager. Please nominate them and help us share their story. As I said, a part of this project is really about raising money for charities. And so with each nomination we get, we'll be donating $5 to Girls Inc., which is an incredible charity that supports women and girls in the US. And to date, we've raised over $40,000 for this charity. I know, that's so amazing. And I'm really, really excited, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. Please go crazy with nominating everyone you can think of that's a great fit. And I'm so excited to see what the 2021 class will look like. And finally, as you can see, the juicy part, today's event, as I said, we have great speakers, and kicking off this event will be a Q&A with Sharon Shooter, founder and CEO of Oma Beauty, moderated by our 2020 honoree, Angela Johnson, Director of Strategy and Consulting at Vayner Commerce, which will be followed up by an incredible panel with Alix Peabody, founder and CEO at Bev, Reshma Chamberlain, co-founder and Chief Brand and Digital Officer at Somersault, and Victoria Eisenberg, Regional VP of Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And of course, moderated by our very own Ashley Rosenthal. So I know you guys are jumping in your seat and you can't wait. So without further ado, let's get into our next program. Angela, please take it away.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Angela Johnson, Director of Strategy and Consulting at Vayner Commerce. We're an agency where we provide growth, technology, and consulting services to help brands achieve sustainable growth in this ever-changing direct-to-consumer environment. I'm very excited to be here today to sit down and hear from Sharon Shooter, founder and CEO of Oma Beauty, as well as the founder of Pull Up for Change. So Sharon, welcome, and thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I'm just going to get right into it. So Sharon, WWD has called you one of the 50 most forward-thinking executives shaping the future of the beauty industry. You've worked with major multinational beauty and consumer brands, including Revlon, L'Oreal, Pepsi, GSK, and Benefit Cosmetics. Can you go back to the beginning and take us through this journey of how you got to where you are today including what led you to start Oma Beauty?
Yeah, I don't think you got enough time because it's a wild ride. But but long story short, I actually started my life thinking that my life would be very different from wanting to be a pilot to then moving on to wanting to be an entertainer. I sort of stumbled into beauty by accident when I had to get a day job. Of course, as you know, singing does not pay the bills, as I learned very quickly. And ended up, long story short, bringing Revlon into my country, Nigeria, and that sort of showed me this new pathway where I could actually go down, and I really enjoyed it. So I packed up my boots as an entertainer and stopped trying to be Beyonce and decided to go do something else. And so that started my career in beauty, and I sold that distribution deal and decided to go and work for other people and really learn the industry and learn business in that way. And so I started there, and I started my career on the sales floor, slugged it out. I mean, there was a point in time I was actually a telemarketer as well, but it was already good learning and training, and then sort of worked my way up through different roles. And then, like you mentioned, I back in the day, people used to say I have an attention span for fully because my problem was I would do something, get good at it, and then want to learn more because I always had this insatiable hunger to actually learn. And so I was in beauty and then decided, hey, I want to learn more. I want to have more, I want to learn more about supply chain. I want more sophistication in terms of more complex business systems, and decided to move into FMCG. And that was when I went into PepsiCo, did that, learned that. That was very exciting, gave me exposure to industries I never even understood existed. Like working with vending machines particularly was one of the more interesting things I did at Pepsi. And then from there, moved into pharmaceuticals again, another learning opportunity there. And then did a full circle and came back into beauty. And I think for me, being in pharmaceuticals really changed me in a lot of ways, because it was the first time in my whole career I had ever done something that felt rewarding at the end of the day. I had come from, remember, I was in old school beauty where we were still, up to today, they still advertise mascaras and false lashes. We still, L'Oreal giving Beyonce hair deals with the long blonde hair that, is not her hair, So I come from an industry that used, beauty, which told everybody they weren't good enough and made them aspire to a standard of beauty that didn't even exist, to be honest. And then on the other hand, going into snack food, I was selling people things that were literally going to clog their heart and telling them it's better for you, and not telling them, hey, it's going to kill you. And so going to pharmaceuticals was the first time that I hit my budget and I go home. And I know as a result of me hitting my budget, somebody who was in chronic pain is in less pain. Somebody who wanted to quit smoking has now quit smoking. Somebody who felt bloated all day long, now feels better and they can face their day. And I think that triggered something in me. That really inspired something in me. And so when I decided to go back to my passion, which was beauty, I found when I came back to the industry, I was an executive. I had broken all the proverbial ceilings, but something was different. I was over 30 now, and I was just very unhappy. I was extremely unhappy. And I had to calm down into what was making me unhappy. And there were a few things I realized. One, I had no fulfillment in the business anymore. It was beauty remained a very exclusive industry, and they didn't cater to people who looked like me. It was an industry that told people you weren't enough, and you had all these criteria you had to meet to be enough. Unfortunately, even in the criteria, I wish there were standards that people can meet. I cannot change the fact I was born black, and I don't want to change the fact. And I realized that the cost for my success was killing everything about me. I had to not be black. I had to change my accent. I was told really early on in my career, braids are unprofessional. So I couldn't wear braids. I had to change everything about me. And so I got to a point where I was extremely frustrated at corporates in general, and the experiences of black people there. I was always the only black woman in every room, the only black person in most rooms I walked into. The industry of beauty that was just not inclusive. And I got to a point where I spent more time complaining about things. And whenever I get to that point, I told myself, pull up or shut up. Talk is cheap. You keep whinging and whinging and whinging. Are you going to do something about it? And if you're not, don't complain about it, just shut up. Or if you're going to do something about it, then do something. And I chose to pull up and do something. And that was why I left. That was why I left corporate. That was why I quit my beautiful job. And of course, my parents were like, what? You're going to quit? Like, what is wrong with you? Our parents love us the most, right? And for me, it was I didn't care about being poor. I didn't care about anything else other than firstly rediscovering myself. Because like I said, in the journey to break these proverbial glass ceilings, I had to lose everything that was me. And so my journey for Awie Beauty was one in reclaiming my identity, reclaiming my person, confronting my own biases, understanding the consequences of my biases, and submitting myself to become a tool for change. And that was really my journey to Awie Beauty. I tell people a lot, it was therapy for me. And that was why I built this brand, to really be a place where everybody can come and also have their own therapy, where we can have the tough conversations, we can have the fun conversations, but most importantly, everybody can turn up and be their authentic selves every day. And that's what I set out to do when I left my corporate job in 2017, and it's what we continue to do in 2020, whether it's trendy or not.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, speaking of pull up or shut up, this summer with the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, many companies took to social media to protest police brutality and show solidarity with the Black community. And Pull Up for Change was really born as a direct response to this. So can you take us through what was going on in your mind as you began this movement?
Yeah, it was very simple. I had been in most of these companies. You know, I've been there. And so it was ridiculous to find them standing there preaching to people about being inclusive, about not having racial biases, about, it was like, hey, wait a second, the same people who torment every Black person that works for you, the same people who don't hire Black people, as we saw when the numbers got released, you know, so it was, you cannot oppress people in the profit of pain. It doesn't work that way. You choose one side. Once again, you pull up or you shut up. You either sit there and say nothing and just, you know, I'm part of the problem, and just own it and just be that person, as opposed to you being part of the problem, but then commercially you're pretending like you're not part of the problem because you know your followers want that. And the most insulting part was the donations. You know, you create a problem. You know what? That knee on George Floyd's neck, how can you, who created that problem, because police brutality is all but an effect, it is not a cause. You know, it is not a cause. Marginalization is the cause. Corporates play a huge role in that, Segregation left law, but it never left. You know what I'm saying? Segregation never left. How many Black people do you see in Beverly Hills? How many Black people do you see in Malibu? How many Black people do you see in Compton, right? And so corporates play a huge role in, because economic marginalization really creates this. So when you have a combination of, I don't provide employment, I redline zones so you don't even have places to live, you have created an ecosystem that makes it impossible for people to build any wealth. Until people build wealth, they can't truly integrate. Until people integrate, white people are always going to be scared of Black people, because all they know about is your thugs, prostitutes, and people who go to jail, right? Unless you're good enough to sing or you're an athlete, then you that, but you is to the whole, you know, or you're the thug, because that's all they see. They have not lived next to a Black person to realize you're just like a person like me. You have blood like me. You love your kids like I love my kids. They don't work next to a Black person to know that you are just a person exactly like me. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the reason why when cops see you, it's like, oh my God, you must be a thug. You know, we had that very recently. The head of menswear footwear at Versace went to his own store. To go buy something, came outside and got harassed by the cops, you know, because somebody accused him of jaywalking. They came there to respond to jaywalking, and instead of doing what they do to every other white kid, which is slap you on the wrist and say, don't jaywalk again, no, they had to go stop and search, searching everywhere for guns, because you see a Black man coming out of a Versace shop, he must have guns with him, because he must be one of those rappers who are thugs, right? And so corporations play a huge role in this. And so for me, it was extremely insulting, extremely infuriating to see one of the key gatekeepers. And this is what companies are. They are the key gatekeepers of economic participation. And without economic participation, you cannot have true integration. And the gatekeepers coming out to go, oh my God, did police kill him? Oh, that's so bad. And then start preaching to people. It's like, if you don't want police to keep killing people, guess what? Start doing what you're supposed to be doing. Start being truly an equal opportunity employer. Start funding people's businesses, because the more people can truly integrate, the more they know not to be afraid of a person just because they're Black, you know, and that was a key for me. So for me, it's a very emotional moment, because we were hurting as a community, and then to hurt and then come out and see Nike throwing a new campaign, don't do it, to the whole world. Oh my God, this is iconic. Nike created a campaign they said, oh my God, don't do it. That's the thing. Really, that's what's going to solve our problems right now? Nike that don't hire Black people, but profit of Black people extensively, whether it's from Jordans or all their collaborations with Black athletes. You know, boys are getting shot in the streets to wear Nike and Adidas. And these companies are sitting there throwing campaigns and giving Kaepernick a deal, not because they care about Kaepernick, but because they know Black people ride for Kaepernick and they want to get that dollar. And so for me, it was like, it's enough. Time's up. We can't continue to do this. It is time to put an end to this. And it's time to take this conversation that we're having all the time in private. It's time to take it public. It's time to put the responsibility back on the consumer. Do you want this or do you want change? And if you want change, vote for your wallet and go for change.
I love that. And I think corporations have a huge social responsibility. What advice can you give companies to ensure that their support of social causes isn't just lip service? And what brands do you think are doing it well in terms of taking meaningful action for change?
Look, everybody asks me that question. I tell people I don't know. Because, you know, in terms of brands that are doing well, I have not seen any brand that's really impressed me, like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? And that's because the journey to true inclusivity is a very long path. It's a very, we all know, some reports have come out now. In June, everybody who was listening and learning, by July, they were posting Black people on the grid in beauty. By September, October, they've disappeared off the grid. They're back to where they were, exactly where they were before it. So the genuine intent has to be there. And one of the reasons why you don't have this is because these companies are not led by the people to bring about the change. How can you fix a problem you don't even understand? You know, look at most corporations in America. The executive suite are full of people who are between 56 to 62 years old, usually white people, whether they're male or female, right? And when you look at that system, you think about it, when these were born, it was illegal for a Black person to marry a white person, illegal. This was the era they grew up in. And now you're coming back in this era and telling them, hey, these were people who run the companies. You see the numbers. There were some companies that reported, we have 0 Black people in our organization. And these executives walked around their offices every day and thought that was okay, right? They never raised the flag until, and then they were inconvenient. They were very annoyed with me. How can you embarrass us like that? Do you know how it's hurting me and my family and my feelings that I'm gonna lose my job? And that was the priority. So I think the reason we're not seeing progress is because the people who are the gatekeepers don't even understand the problem. And until we start seeing more people, more diversity in the C-suite, we're not going to see this trickle down. Because right now, what did they do after this happened in June? Let's create a diversity council. Let's gather all the Black people who work for us and give it to them to fix the problem. At best, let's go hire a chief diversity officer. Companies, when they have problems, throw money at problems. One of the reasons why we're not seeing progress in this area is this is not a problem that Boston Consulting Group can charge you $2 million and come and fix, right? This is not a problem McKinsey can actually fix for you. It is a human problem, which means companies have to look at themselves like human beings. People look and they talk about Black, the crisis we have here in this country, Black unemployment, and they say it's corporate social responsibility. It is not corporate social responsibility. I want to put it back to everybody. It is illegal to discriminate against people, right? It is illegal. The numbers that have even been reported via Pull Up for Change shows pure discrimination across the board, because you cannot say this was Silicon Valley said you can't find Black people in San Francisco. What did New York have to say? Nike said, oh, we're in Portland, we can't find Black people there. What do you have to say in New York? But the companies in New York had reports that were just as bad as the ones in Los Angeles, just as bad as the ones in Silicon Valley, just as bad as the ones that are coming out of Portland. So what are we talking about? So this is not even a corporate social responsibility issue. This is right now even a legal issue. Let's even come back to there. This is a legal issue. And so right now, what companies need to do is recognize that. One, it's a legal issue, because right now, you are not an equal opportunity employer. It's not happening, right? And then the second piece of it is now this is a commercial issue, because Gen Z have made this a commercial issue, and they're deciding to spend their money where their values are. And they're saying to companies, if you want to be that company that's not inclusive, I'm not going to buy from you. And this is actually why companies are scared right now and are trying to do something. So for me, I say it starts from the top. I say if they want to see the change in their organizations, each and every one of those executives there has to be the first people to take that anti-bias training. They have to be the first people to understand their own biases. You cannot be an ally for change unless you understand that. And this is the part people actually miss. We want to blame other people. You are the racist. You know, if you hear the word racism, you think, or white supremacy, you think about Ku Klux Klan. And if you're not that and you're not Proud Boys, then you're not, right? But that's not what we're talking about. Every single person, I talked even about myself and how I had to confront my own biases. I had to do that, and I'm a Black woman, right? The first part to change, and the first part every CEO and every C-suite executive has to do to truly start bringing change is, firstly, question themselves and understand they're not immune to biases. And not only are they not immune, that their whole world has been designed with so much bias, it's not even funny, especially when they're born from a certain time and an era, right? So you start from there. The second part is for you to understand the consequences of your biases. What are the consequences of these little things I do every day, like overlook Black employees, not even check, are Black people getting promoted in this company? How are they feeling? Can they wear their hair the way they should? Are they being bullied in the kitchen? Are they having microaggressions? You're not even looking for it because it's not your problem, right? Understanding the consequence of that. And then once you do that, right, you become appalled because you start realizing, oh my God, either my silence is costing me this, my complacency is costing me this, and la, la, la. And that's when truly you become an ally for change, just like I did. Because it was me understanding that that made me realize I don't care about money. I have to be part of the solution. When the first Black Lives Matter movement hit globally in 2014 after Eric Garner's death, I was one of the people who said all lives matter. Me right here. I said all lives matter. This is very divisive. Why are you talking about Black people? After I'm also a Black person and I became an executive, the others were not a lazy. I said that, me right here. So this is what I keep telling the people. You have to firstly embrace your own biases. Then you have to be mortified by the consequences of your biases. And then that ignites a fire in you to truly become an ally. But even some of us go beyond being an ally for change, but also become an advocate for change. And that's what these companies need to be doing. And I have not seen one company who's done that. So unfortunately, I would love to give all these other great companies right now, but I have not seen them.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice to hear, not just at the corporate level, but the individual level as well. I think we can all benefit from being more mindful of our biases and really trying to understand. So we're living through some incredibly turbulent times, to say the least. Can you share some tactics or examples of what you've done to ride through the uncertainty at Oma Beauty? And how have you kept your customers engaged? And have you made any shifts in your marketing?
Not really, actually. I think for us, it was so interesting. When COVID hit, everybody was panicking and everything, including myself. And I remember us having this big meeting as a team, you know, trying to like figure it out, you know, what is going on and la, 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 what do we do about this? Is this going to be long-term? The good thing was, firstly, I assumed it was going to be long-term. I remember when COVID hit, everyone was like, oh, you're being doom and gloom. I was like, this is going to be with us for at least 18 months, right? And so when we gathered as a team, you know, everybody was like, okay, this is survival. We need to do this. You know, it was so interesting the things my team picked up first that we needed to change. All the complaints we had in year one. We were too Black. We celebrated too many people of color. White women are uncomfortable with the brand because there's not enough white faces in the brand. La, 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 la. All the same thing, like, this is not time of value. This is time for survival. And we are being penalized commercially because we're not doing these things. So you can come back to your values in 2 years' time, but you will not have a business, essentially, in 2 years' time if you don't move and listen to where the market is right now. The market is just not ready. And my response to that was, as every stubborn bird, we're going to double. Actually, we're not DNA enough. Actually, we're not speaking loud enough. Because guess what? If my business is going to fail, I want to fail on my own terms. I want to fail knowing I did what I came out to do, and it wasn't the right time for it. And so we did the opposite. We didn't turn away and change our strategy. We doubled down on our strategy because our brand is values-led. Our brand is about the DNA. It's about who we are. It's about community. And we said even more, people need community now more than ever. People need, you know, somewhere where they can feel like they're home and they belong right now in this time of uncertainty. And so we need to just double down. And so we did that. We doubled, we focused on the customer. We doubled down on our DNA. We got more vocal than we were even the year before. So it was literally anti everything I should have done smart, right? And it paid off. It paid off big time because even what happened between that time and now, the world finally caught up to where we are. The same things I was saying last year that was considered divisive Now people are willing to listen to it. You know, people are now open to go, you know what, you're not crazy. You're not a person who hates, you know, people. No, what you're actually saying is true. And so it's quite interesting for us that it was really sticking to our values, sticking to who we are, sticking to being vocal, that has made us completely different. Where everybody's in decline, we're in growth. You know, people are looking at next year and it's all about slashing numbers. My team is going to grow 5 times next year. I'm literally hiring like crazy, you know, so it's the opposite. And I think it is a testament to values-led business. It's like, forget about the commercials sometimes. And that's what I think a lot of companies are struggling with right now in terms of a business being human. And that's where the world is moving to. Businesses are now required to be human, you know, to have the emotions, to be somebody, to stand for something. And I think that's what we did this year in terms of just doubling down on that DNA and doing that regardless of the consequence, and it ended up paying off positively. And then, you know, for me personally, you know, my dog is my escape. Leo, he's literally my escape. You know, normally he's sitting on my lap while I do interviews and everything. He's my best friend, he's my companion, and he's my sanity. So I work very, very hard. I work, you know, most days 20 hours every single day. And it doesn't bother me because I enjoy what I do. But when I want to switch off, my dog's my switch off. I listen to music a lot. That's my kind of escape. And my family, I think even though we're separated right now because of COVID, we can't travel as much as we do, we're closer than we've ever been, because now we do take the time to call each other and FaceTime. And, you know, before I actually came on this call, I was talking to my sister, you know, as I was doing my makeup, I was like, okay, I've got, you know, 20 minutes to do my makeup. Let me call my sister while I do my makeup. I can't type anyway. So I think, you know, for me, I've just got closer to my family. I mean, we've always been a close family, but even closer during this pandemic. And my dog, so he's so everything that's kept me going and saying his family, and they're still the same ones who continue to, you know, not only support me, but also be my biggest critic and be my biggest supporter at the same time, and going, hey, you've gone too far there. Hey, you know what I mean? And you really need that. And so for me, that's how I stay sane, by working, and that's a good thing when you're living a purpose-driven life. You don't even realize the things around you. I have to sometimes stop to remember COVID. I think I remember COVID because I'm not on a plane, because I'm seeing, you know, the disastrous effect it's having around the world. But when I see it, I'm more like, how can I help? How can I be part of the solution, as opposed to being depressed about what is actually happening? And that's where, you know, for me, it's different, because I'm such a solutions-orientated person that whenever there's a problem, I want to fix it. And so that keeps me very busy, and that is a really good distraction in itself.
That's great. I can definitely relate to that. I think this whole pandemic and the situation that we're in has really made me think about what my priorities are and what's important to me in life, and bringing me closer to the people that are in my life.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Last question for you. As a woman, what do you think are some of the best qualities to ensure success in a male-dominated space?
Be yourself. You know, I don't think it'll be more, if I give a different answer, it'll be crazy. Be yourself. Why? You know, I've always been bewildered, you know, because every time, and you see a lot of successful women, and you see the cause, they're trying to be men. They're trying to be men. Look at the state of the world. Look at where men have got us to. We need diversity. We need diversity of thought. We need diversity of personality. And if you're showing up trying to be a person because that guarantees the person's success, you see why we're lacking diversity even when diverse people walk into the room, because they're being, whether it's you being a woman, whether it's you being a black person, whether it's you being Asian, you've been morphed to be the person before you, right? And so I think everybody really needs to show up as themselves. You need to love yourself. You need to trust yourself, you know, everything, like, you know, and I'm a good example of that. I'm a weirdo. I'm a crazy. I'm a person who should not succeed. Like, literally, I should not succeed. But the same things that led to, for instance, me in my younger career, that stifled my promotions, are the things that made me a great entrepreneur today. Imagine if I had dropped those things. Imagine if I had been less vocal. Imagine if I didn't speak up, you know? So those exact things that people criticize you for, you keep going for it. You know, you keep, if that's who you are naturally, you keep going for it. So I say to because I think women who come on and they're on top and they want to be men. They're trying to be men. They're trying to, you know, lead the way men lead. I see women come in there and, oh, because I was raised in a boys' club, so they're brutish to people. They kill their compassion because it's seen as weakness. I'm the opposite. I lead with compassion, and I embrace that. Because that's what makes me different, because I have empathy, because I can sympathize with people, because I can relate with people, right? That's a strength that I have as a woman, and it's my superpower. So I actually would tell women, embrace yourself, embrace your femininity if you're feminine. If you're not feminine, you're masculine, embrace it. But the most important thing is show up as yourself and trust yourself. And every single time people doubt you, prove them wrong. And it becomes an art and a sport. When I was going to raise money for my business, somebody legit looked me in the eye and said to me, you know, it would be a lot easier for you if you had a middle-aged white man next to you raising money. Because I'm nice enough to tell you this, but what investors see is a risk. Because I was wondering why every time I was presenting in those meetings, they were asking me, are you married? What does your husband think of this? And I'm going, that's a weird question. I'm sure if a guy was pitching, nobody would ask him what your wife thinks about this or whatever. But they kept asking. And apparently the reason is they think women are risky, because apparently you can be working and working hard as an entrepreneur, you work really hard, and then your husband can walk up to you and tell you quit or else. And so investors are panicking that women are unstable, women are emotional, women cry too much, women have nervous breakdowns. Literally, this man listed everything for me as to why it's too risky to invest in a woman. We don't have the resilience to carry through. We break easily and la, 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 la. And I'm looking at the man and I'm going like, okay, I'm listening. Thank you for being honest and whatever. And I still don't have a middle-aged white man in my business, and we're still here, right? So I think embrace yourself and prove everybody wrong. When they keep telling you, you know, people poke you and they want you to break down, don't break down. When you are assertive, they call you aggressive, and that's okay. You know, you smile, you do your thing, and you walk out. And so for me is be yourself. Show up as yourself every single day, and then let your work do the telling, right? Don't go about, a badass doesn't talk about being a badass, you just are a badass, right? So you go about being your own badass woman in your own way, whether it's through love and compassion, whether you've got a little bit of that oomph and that fire, whatever it is, we're all effective in our own different ways. So I wish I could give anybody a 10-point plan on how to be an incredible woman, but I would really 10-point plan, take that plan and rip it up, you know, get inspired by people, but be yourself. That is the best thing that can work to anybody. And that's tough, right? Because people want a handbook. Tell me the things I need to do. And it's like, you have to find it in you. You have to find that. Nobody can give you that answer. You have to figure it out for yourself. You have to figure out what your superpower is. You have to figure out what your purpose is and how you want to ride into your purpose. For instance, me as a female and a woman of color, here are the things I set for myself as boundaries my whole career. I would never backstab. I would never fight another person and, you know, go play this corporate politics that you have to do to get the job, you know. I would never do any of those things. And guess what? A lot of times I miss jobs because I didn't do it, because I didn't, you know, play the corporate game. But guess what? I run my own business now, right? So maybe if I played this corporate game, I would have been like senior executive of some company. I'd be like, yeah, look at how well I did. I wouldn't have got here if I didn't play those games, but I wouldn't know that I traded my glory because I played those games. And so you have to really draw your own lines. You have to believe in yourself and just follow that path wherever it leads you, because you never know. You could be compromising yourself into mediocrity and not walking into that absolute glory that you should be in. So I would tell everybody, be yourself, love yourself, everybody else is taken. To be a leader as a woman, embrace your woman. That's why you're going to change the world, because the world needs more women in power in every industry, in every political circuit. It needs more women.
I love that. We're all human, so we could all benefit from showing some more compassion and empathy towards one another, even in a work environment. Well, that's it for us. So thanks so much for everyone who tuned in today. And a huge thank you to you, Sharon, for giving us your time.
For allowing me to show up as my true self. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Well, next we'll hear from amazing women in e-commerce honorees Alex, Reshma, and Victoria. And they will be discussing how they've withered the uncertainty of the past year from both a personal and professional standpoint, how they've managed to succeed in a male-dominated industry, and much more. So stay tuned.
Welcome to all of our attendees. I'm Ashley Rosenthal, Enterprise Marketing Consultant at Yappo. We're super excited to sit down and hear from an inspiring group of women and our 2020 honorees. Reshma Chamberlain, co-founder and chief brand officer and digital officer at Somersault. Alix Peabody, founder and CEO at Bev, and Vicki Eisenberg, Regional VP of Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Before we get started, just a reminder that if you want to share any content from this event on social, and we definitely encourage you to do so, please be sure to tag at Women in Ecom, and also feel free to tag at Yatpo, Somersault, Bev, and Salesforce Commerce Cloud directly so that we can reshare. So please introduce yourselves and tell us about your favorite, or tell us about your brand. And I'll start with you, Alix.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alix Peabody. I am the founder and CEO at Bev, and we are a canned wine company, for now anyway, that is really trying to change the narrative around the way that women are projected and perceived in the alcohol industry. So right now we have a few different types of varietals coming out with more, and we're really hoping to change drinking culture.
Awesome, thank you. And Reshma?
I'm Reshma Chatharam Chamberlain. I'm the co-founder and chief brand and digital officer at Somersault. Somersault started as a swimwear brand, but we've since expanded into loungewear, pajamas, amazing cashmere sweaters, and many other things. Our goal was to inspire joy in the swimwear shopping experience and take away kind of the insecurities and inhibitions women feel while shopping for swimwear. It's an incredibly emotional garment. We all know how we feel when we shop for swimwear. So we wanted to create a joyful process and then continue to add more joy in her wardrobe through other wardrobe essentials.
Awesome, I love that so much. And Vicki?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vicki Eisenberg. I'm a regional vice president here at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Commerce has actually been a passion of mine for a while. Right out of college, I actually got into working at a daily deal of the day site, which got me really interested in the behind the scenes projects around crafting websites and putting sellable products on websites. So a buddy of mine moved from that daily deal of the day site over to Demandware back in the day. And if you recall, Salesforce acquired Demandware back in 2016. So I've actually been at this company selling a commerce platform for over 10 years. I've had about 5 different roles within the company. I'm now on to my 6th, and it's been great.
Thank you so much for those intros. So I'd love to get right into the questions. What have you seen is working during this work from home environment in terms of balancing struggles with home and work life? And how are you maintaining your individual balance? And Vicki, I'll hand it to you to start us off.
Sure. It honestly has been a struggle. I find working from home, I mean, I'm always working from home because I'm in sales naturally, but I'm used to traveling. So traveling to visit clients, traveling for internal meetings and sales enablement and whatnot. But I'm a working mom of 3. I have 3 kids that are under the age of 5. I have 2 golden retrievers who keep me very active and busy. I have a super needy husband. I think a lot of us can relate to that. And I also have a live-in nanny. So my house is just completely full of people, kids, dogs, just like it's chaos 24/7. And, you know, now that I'm home 24/7 and on calls, just like we're here today on Zoom and whatnot, sometimes I'm in calls where my 2 worlds blur and they combine. So funny story from the other day, I was on the call with one of our prospects going through pricing. So it was quite an important call. And I was one of those days where my husband was working, my nanny actually was on PTO. So I was home alone with my 3 kids and my like 12 dogs and whatnot. And my daughter, who's 2, we were potty training her at the time. She's now potty trained, but I remember I'd stuck her, there's a chair behind me. I'd stuck her on this chair behind me on her iPad just so I could get through this call. And halfway through the call, she jumps up and she's like, "Mommy, I have to go potty." And I'm like, panic mode on the call. The CEO at the company is laughing. And I'm like, "Honey, just like, wait a minute, or the bathroom's over there, you know where it is, you can do it." And she's like, "No, Mommy, I have to go potty now." And I'm like, "Okay. Just run into the bathroom and I'll meet you." And she's like, "Mom, you have to wipe me." And she's like standing in front of the computer and everyone's laughing, everyone's dying. And it's just like, the fact that the other side of this was appreciating what I was going through. And I think all of us can kind of relate to those stories, that our worlds are really combining, they're blurring, but we're all kind of very human in those situations. And, I feel appreciative that like, we're all kind of in this together. But like, if we were to talk about the things that are making my work home life balance, are things like my Peloton, which I think you can see in my background, and just generally getting outside. I've gotten into running. I'm now running up to like a 10K, which I've never been a runner in my life. So really just getting out of my house, getting out of my office is my zen.
Yeah, absolutely. I find even in New York City, it's really important just to walk outside at least once a day. Yeah. So Reshma, tell us about your experience.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I would say that for me, I was traveling like an insane person, kind of like you, Victoria. Last year, I can't even count how many flights I took. It was like at least over 80. I started counting and then I completely gave up. For pleasure and for work, we'd have to travel a lot. My family lives all over the world and my best friends are spread out across the world. So work from home from a work perspective has actually been quite enjoyable. I do miss my team because we are very close, but what's amazing is we're able to be as efficient. We've had a really incredible year. So to be able to do that in this environment, we're very, very grateful for. We've had some new efficiencies because of the work from home environment. So for example, you could share information passing in the hallway, but we've had to implement some really thoughtful strategic processes. And I think that's really incredible for our business earlier than we would have, based on our scale. So from a business perspective, I actually think the work from home has not been as bad as I think we were all thinking it might have been. My co-founder and me do meet sometimes. We socially distance and meet in the office. We do that late nights or, over the weekend. So we do have a little bit of that, one-on-one communication, which is so wonderful. But what it also allowed me to do this year is our wonderful puppy of 12 years passed away, but I've spent every waking minute with her. And so for me, it's been the most amazing experience to have that time with her. On a personal level, though, it is hard because mom lives in India, sisters live in Dubai, my best friends live in Hong Kong, India, and London. So my life was very much about planning that next adventure so I could see the people I loved. And that is very tough because you don't get to do that anymore. We're all just waiting and hoping. We've booked a trip for May. Who knows if it's going to happen? So on a personal front, I think my experience is very different than many who have maybe family nearby or a larger group of friends in the city that they live in, who they might be able to create pods with, or family kind of pods with as well. We don't necessarily have that ecosystem, and so for us, I'm waiting on the personal front to be able to be out and about in the world again. But from a work front, I actually think it's been really, really beneficial to kind of create those processes that create a really truly scalable team.
Absolutely. And Alix, tell us what you're doing.
I mean, I would say I would echo a lot of what the other ladies said. I think from a work perspective, it definitely has implemented efficiencies that weren't there before and that wouldn't have necessarily been there before, kind of like Reshma said. But I also think that we're also scaling right now, and the work from home situation has been pretty good for business because people are drinking more and wanting to show up at their door and they don't really want to go to the store and stuff like that. And so for us, we kind of had this explosive moment where we were all on lockdown and we had to be hiring. And for me, I guess the biggest thing I would say is the biggest challenge has been maintaining culture with new hires without being able to see them in person. And that's something that I think has been, challenging, but also, exciting. And it's like, how do we make, because also, over time, Bev is going to have a national footprint just based on the geography of where we're distributed. And so it's also challenged me to figure out, okay, I need to make those training videos like now. I need to make all of these ways to integrate people into the brand now in a way that I didn't think I would have to do until we were a fully nationally distributed brand. So that part has been pretty interesting and challenging. Personally, I work with my husband also, so he's on our marketing team, and we're very close as well. So I've gotten to see some. I'm obviously close with him, but a couple other people on the leadership team. So I've gotten to see them, and we're also considered essential business, so we never actually have to shut down because we're part of the food chain. So there's just been a lot of kind of like careful interaction, but my team still has to go to the grocery store, right? So that's also been an interesting thing to manage, where it's like, okay, how do I make sure that the corporation is supporting people whose job is to be in the field, and make sure that people aren't, uncomfortable in this time. So that all has been very strange. But I think ultimately has brought the team together in a pretty big way. I mean, getting through a pandemic like this and through this type of environment as a unit is a real big bonding experience. And personally, like Reshma, I traveled so much, and wow, I had no idea how much of a break my body needed and how much of it was not necessary. And so I think, I have like reset on my mind relatively permanently around my boundaries around like what's worth traveling for and what's not. Because it was really doing some damage that I didn't even realize. So I'm happy with it for the most part.
Absolutely. I think we all really appreciate that, alcohol and wine was deemed an essential business throughout this time. So thank you for your work.
We were in Pennsylvania, believe it or not. So we got our D2C. They shut down liquor stores in Pennsylvania, and so our D2C like exploded, and we were like, "Why is Pennsylvania going crazy?" But they shut down all the liquor stores, which sounded crazy to me. But anyway,
those poor Pennsylvanians. Well, thank you for helping them out. So shifting gears just a little bit, I'd love to hear what advice you would give to your 21-year-old self. And Reshma, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah, I think my 21-year-old self was not that drastically different from my 35-year-old self. Still very crazily ambitious, very focused, very hardworking. I think those are three things that I've always been. But I think I would tell her to trust the process a little bit more. So I think when you're 21, you want the immediate results, especially when you're type A and ambitious and you've been dreaming about your office, which I did since I was 8. Did not dream about like kids and weddings. None of that was on my radar. I wanted an office and I wanted a dog. Those were the two top priorities in my life. And so when you've been dreaming about something since you're a kid, you want those immediate kind of results. You're like, okay, I did what I needed to do. I got great grades. I did the internships. I did everything. Why aren't I at this point? Why aren't I at that point? And even if you feel like you're not moving forward, every experience is moving you forward. And I think I would remind my 21-year-old self to not be disheartened. But I would also tell my 21-year-old self not to be afraid to quit when it's not the right thing for you. And I think we hear a lot about like just sticking with it. But I think you have to stick with things that make sense to stick with and not stick with things that don't make sense to stick with. So I quit a job when I was 23, 3 days in, and everyone was like, why are you doing that? That's the craziest thing you've ever done. Best decision I ever made. It was not the right fit for me. It did not align with my life goals. But then other jobs I've stuck with for a very long time, with limited salary, that were not very, that were pretty thankless, but I knew it was getting me from point A to point B. So it's not about how tough it is, it's just about what it aligns with your values, what you want to do. So I would tell my 21-year-old self to not be in a rush and just own who you are. Don't be afraid, be honest about what you want and go for it.
I love that advice. And I'm 35 and I'm going to take some of that away for myself. So Alix, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, I mean, my 21-year-old self was, I was super ambitious at the time as well, but I think my ambitions were completely different than what they are today. When I was 24, I suffered some really serious health problems and was in and out of the hospital for like 18 months. And, I think the reality is, I would say two things to myself. One is, the curveballs are coming, and you will get through them. And I think that's an important thing to note, because I think we're all kind of like, oh, there's this path and whatever. And, there are so many people that I know that have had such crazy curveballs thrown at them that are out of left field that you would never expect. And those are the things that are actually going to shape the fabric of who you are, and how you react to them. And so the path you think you're going down, you're wrong, and be okay with that, is the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is, you know, I'm 30 now, but I would just say like, just start. And I think most people, it's the leap that's the scary thing, right? And I think if you have faith in the process and you really kind of are working hard at something that you're passionate about, you'll figure it out, right? Like I think that at the end of the day, you don't fail because you fail because you quit. You know, if it is something that's aligned with you, I agree with Reshma. Don't stay in a stupid job. iBanking is the biggest hoax on the face of the planet, in my personal opinion. Anyway, but you've got it. I would say hard no on that. But yeah, so that's kind of that's what I would say is just you know, brace for the curveballs, be excited about them, and just start.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Alix. And Vicki?
Yeah, so advice I would give my 21-year-old self, I still live by this today, and I actually have like signs throughout my office that remind me of this every day, but it's really simple. It's just straightforward. It's be yourself. And the reason for that is that I struggled a lot early in my career, especially around 21, like right when I graduated college and was getting into the workforce. My siblings are like 10 years older than I am, and my family's all super successful, like great grades, great colleges, great work, and right. And I felt this pressure to like be awesome, right? I had to succeed, I had to prove myself. And I got into the Commerce Cloud. I was back at Demandware, and I remember that I always wanted to get into sales. I started out as an inside sales rep, you know, getting on the lines and calling a bunch of people. And I remember that like, as I was getting into applying into sales, I kept being told, you're too young, you're too inexperienced, you don't know what you're doing. You know, I got that a lot. And I remember thinking like, okay, if I talk the talk, if I like read the sales manual's handbook of like how I'm supposed to act, if I dress like my people that I'm like looking up to, if I have phone calls with them and just try to mimic their speeches and their, you know, their pitches and to basically be them, then I'll be successful. And I remember trying that for like a good amount of time. And I remember like I kept failing and failing because I wasn't being authentic to myself. I wasn't doing it the Vicki way. And like, you know, the Vicki way isn't always right, but it's true to myself. And I feel like I can defend my actions when I do it my own way. And the second that I started to break the barrier down, that I didn't need to be this false entity that like I thought I had to be, I started to do things the way that I would have done them, which may be different than the normalcy, right? Like there are some scripts that you do have to follow, but I started to break some rules, right? Like, ooh, challenging, like break the rules, go do something differently. And it turned out to be quite successful. Like I feel like I've found in my career in doing things very authentically. And I get that a lot from my team, my teammates, and just my entire company always sees that like when I speak, you can always tell that it's the truth. Like what I'm talking about, I'm passionate about. And the way that I do it, you see my mind thinking and saying, oh, I would do it this way. Maybe let's not do it this way sometimes, right? So I think, you know, when we're younger, we don't have that confidence that we can be ourselves doing something. So I really feel like I took that to heart and now live like that, even outside of work, like even with my friends and my relationships that I have outside of work. Like if you're always just honest, authentic, and doing things the way you think you should do them, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, thank you. I think that really resonates with a lot of us. Oh, Alix.
Right. No, I was just saying, just like along those lines, there was one of my favorite quotes of all time. Conan O'Brien actually spoke at my commencement speech, and he said, nothing in life is more liberating than having your worst fear realized. And that was something that like I think goes with what all of us are saying, which is that like be yourself. And at the end of the day, like the worst thing you could possibly think of is, you know, on the other side of tension is always going to be release, and just like trusting that it's just something that I've found to be like an extraordinarily guiding force. But anyways, that's what someone told me when I was 21. I wish I'd listened.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I really love this next question, really important to me. So I'm excited to hear your answers. As women, what do you think are some of the best qualities to ensure success in a male-dominated space? And Alix, I'll have you start.
Oh boy, my space is so male dominated. It's like insane. It's definitely an old boys club, and there are a lot of laws that have been here since literally prohibition. So we're dealing with large scale family businesses for generations that are slinging booze for a living. So it's interesting. But, you know, for me, I would say, don't be afraid to play the hand you're dealt. And that might be a little bit of like a, you know, controversial thing to say. But I think, you know, you don't have to be the guy or be, you know, like what Vicky was saying, to be successful in a guy's world. For me, it's been a lot about learning what their game is and then like beating them at their own game, right? In my way. And so, for example, you know, we go into distributor meetings and there are 300, I mean, back in the day, like 300 guys, middle-aged white men that are supposed to distribute this like bright pink can. And at one point I was just like, screw it. And we started going into our distributor meetings with a speaker that was playing It's Raining Men and just started like dancing. And we're like, it's raining men, like, hallelujah. And suddenly they're like, okay, that's hilarious, right? And so I think, you know, for me, it's a game of chess, not checkers, and really being strategic around, you know, around what they're, you know, women have that intuition, you know, and so not being afraid to use it, not being afraid to know like the audience you're talking to and which sort of, you know, speaking to them, I think has been really important, at least in my world, which is like crazy dudes all the time.
Absolutely. I love the story of the raining man on the speaker. So Vicky, I am also in software sales, which I can, you know, speak to, very male dominated. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, I was just about to say that to Alix, is that like I can relate to the male dominated space. I mean, especially in management in software sales is like all men. So it's really refreshing to like back to my be yourself thing is that like I don't have to be that, right? Like I can be my own authentic woman leading this space, right? And I actually just bought a book the other day that my manager recommended to me. It's called The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. I actually have it right here on my desk that I've started reading. It's all about the imposter syndrome. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but it's something that like we women can all relate to in the sense that like we don't feel qualified for our current role. And we're kind of like, crap, like, did someone actually hire me for this role? Like, why did they hire me for this role? You know, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm capable. And it's all this self-doubt that sometimes we suppress ourselves. And, you know, with being successful comes the like self-doubt thoughts all the time. You're not 100%, you know, I'm confident, I know what I'm doing 24/7. Like, we kind of have that suppression sometimes that like, maybe we don't know what we're doing. Maybe there's more that we need to learn. And the fact that there's like a whole book out there about other people that feel the same way that I do sometimes, and that like, ever since I've started to tell people about this book, they're like, oh my God, where can I buy it? I feel the same way. And it started this like community network here at Salesforce of other women that I've been speaking with that feel similarly. And it's been really fun just connecting with others and having this community, just like the ones that Yapo has created for this. Like, it's great to be among friends here. Like, we all have similar, we share similar stories and can relate a lot. The other thing is, one of my friends, Lauren, that also works at Salesforce Commerce Cloud, she recently ran a I Am Remarkable series for a bunch of women that was started by Google, and she was a moderator in one of these panels. And a bunch of women, all of us got together and joined a phone call, and she was sharing some stats about women in the workplace. And the most interesting stat that she shared that day was that in job interviews and looking at job descriptions, men will apply if they feel that they meet 60% of the job credentials. Okay, so they're reading something, okay, I kind of fit this, I'm gonna apply. Women, on the other hand, will only apply if they meet 100% of those credentials, which I find to be crazy, but also I do the same thing. I'm like, well, they're probably not going to think I'm great because I don't know how to do that. Like, men ultimately, because of the workforce, feel more confident to apply to things. So I just feel like we need to like come back on ourselves and keep reminding other women that we are worthy, that we are capable, we can do this. We are just as successful as men, if not more, because we're working so hard to prove ourselves. And like, you know, we can impact change. We can make change happen. And you know, I don't want to bring politics into this, but like, look at Kamala Harris. She's now in the White House. Like, glass ceiling is broken. Like, we can make this happen. And I just like, I feel so much passion around like women empowerment and making sure that we all have each other's backs. So I think we need to continue to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And Reshma, please share.
Yeah, so when I think about it, of course, we sell swimwear to women, so it's about relating to her. But when you're raising money, only 3% of venture funding went to women last year. And I believe this year it's even less due to the pandemic. I don't think there's exact statistics out yet. So when you think about that, you are pitching a swimsuit to men who've never worn a swimsuit, who've never understood what it means to feel vulnerable and uncomfortable and stressed out in a swimsuit. So that dynamic is really, really interesting. And one thing that I've learned in approaching kind of a male-dominated fundraising ecosystem is to really not try to be the man, but to be yourself. Similar to what Vicky said, is just take a more personal approach, but really understand what are those things that are important for someone to make the deal. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. It really is about those sound deal points that make a deal attractive to any investor. So instead of focusing on who we were speaking to in terms of their gender, we really focused on what that investor really needed to hear, what was important to them. Were margins important to them? Was marketing strategy more important to them? Was customer acquisition more important to them? And being really prepared. So I think no matter in what situation, being incredibly prepared is important. That does not mean that we haven't had some interesting situations happen. I would love to share one particular example. We were pitching to a group of men, I'll keep it pretty vague, and we finished our pitch and we passed around the swimsuit so people could feel it. Our fabric is incredibly soft. It's made out of recycled materials. It's absolutely beautiful. And one particular man chose not to touch the swimsuit, which I think is just absolutely crazy. But I knew something was going to come out of my mouth, and I'm talking to myself saying, Reshma, don't say anything. Reshma, don't say anything. We're trying to get this money. We're a young business that really needs to fundraise. My co-founder is watching me like, what is going to come out of her mouth? And I said, are you afraid to touch a swimsuit? And I couldn't help myself. And I thought it was really important to put that out there, because you do see this incredible bias as you navigate, the fundraising ecosystem. We've been very blessed with amazing male investors who support our business, who understand the opportunity, who understand the economics of our business and how it really makes sense. And so it's been really an interesting thing to navigate, because you see the wide spectrum of humanity in essence as you navigate both the consumer experience and the fundraising experience. You're going to interact with good people, and you're going to interact with people who just don't understand who you are. And we've taken a very human approach to that, is how can we relate to people on a human level? And I think that's something that we can all think about, given kind of how tumultuous everything is I've been working hard to kind of relate to people on that human level, even if I disagree with them. And even if I don't think that I have common ground. Alex, to your point, entering that room with all of the people and the men, the white men, middle-aged men, who you may not have anything in common with, but finding something like humor in common is so exciting and interesting to me, because I do think in the end, we're all just human. We're all flawed. We all make mistakes. We're all kind of learning and growing. Some people identify that and are actively wanting to learn and grow. Other people, not so much. But we can really craft our own kind of destiny by hopefully choosing the people we interact with, and then having and sharing some common ground with the people we might have to interact with. And kind of bridging that gap. So I think it's really interesting, and I think it's also important to stand up for yourself and sometimes say the thing that you probably shouldn't say, and it's okay.
Yeah, I would add to that, Reshma, like I've had this experience, like especially when you're a young person who's fundraising and you're like, I just need the money, I just need the money. Like, it is okay. Like, there is someone out there that is the right fit. Don't do it if it's not right, because that is the pain of not having the money when you need it is way lower than the pain of continuously dealing over the course of years with someone that's not the right fit for you. I promise, I've been there. Don't do it.
And say the thing you have to say if you have to say it. Like, I could not help myself, and that was okay. And I'm actually quite proud of that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to do similar things, and it's scary, but you're just like, you know who you are at that point in time.
Well, thank you so much, Reshma, Alix, and Vicky. And to everyone who tuned in, be sure to tag us on social media at Women in Ecom if you want to share moments from today's session. And thank you again, ladies. Back to you, Ariel.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you to all of our amazing speakers and attendees for joining us today for this wonderful event. But a special thank you to Yotpo and our event partners, Klarna, Salesforce, and Recharge. 100% of our sponsorship contributions for this event goes directly to Girls Inc., a girls' charity in the US, so we're very proud and excited about that. We will, of course, be sending you a full recording of today's event via email, so stay tuned for that. We'll also be sending out an email asking you to rate today's event and to share your feedback. We would greatly appreciate if you took a few minutes to fill it out, and it would help us really to bring the best speakers and cover the most relevant topics possible. In case you missed it, because we'll be watching, if you want to share any content from the event on social, and we encourage you to do so, please make sure to tag us at Women in Ecom, or feel free to tag us directly at Yotpo so we can reshare. One last reminder, I know you know what I'm talking about. The call for nominations, of course, is now open. So if you know an amazing woman, please do nominate her today. We'll also be sending out the information for that as well. Thank you again for staying tuned in with the Amazing Women in E-commerce Initiative, and we'll see you at the next event.